Welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, let's just jump right into this, because today we're looking at a highly chaotic, deeply interconnected global news cycle from June 6, 2026. Seriously, if you've been glancing at the headlines today, you know it feels like literally everything is happening everywhere all at once. What we're going to do right now is synthesize this massive wave of breaking news. By pulling directly from today's source reporting, we're going to build a clear, structured picture of exactly what is going on globally, domestically, and in those really weird spaces where those two worlds collide.
Here's our roadmap for today. We've got three main parts. 1. Escalating global conflicts. 2. The U.S. political arena. And 3. Transnational tensions and tech.
So let's start with part 1, escalating global conflicts, a world on edge. We are seeing a rapid-fire sequence of events today. Listen to this. Iranian missiles have struck Kuwait and Bahrain, drawing swift condemnation over sovereignty violations, while Iranian forces are engaging in deadly gunfights along their own border. And at the exact same time, a massive Ukrainian blitz has hit St. Petersburg right in the middle of a global forum. Over in Asia, Taiwan is raising urgent alarms as Chinese vessels close in, sparking fresh fears of a major escalation there. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, a violent crowd attacked a Jerusalem police station, pushing to free prisoners. And, as if that wasn't enough to keep track of, North Korea's Kim Jong-un just unveiled plans for a massive 10,000-ton destroyer. The simultaneous nature of these flashpoints happening all at once is just absolutely staggering.
So, the crucial point here is how the major global powers are reacting to this tangled web of crises. Take this quote from Russian President Vladimir Putin, which really grounds the fast-paced news we just looked at. Commenting specifically on the Iranian military campaign and the missile attacks on Gulf states, he stated it's a, quote, difficult situation for Russia, noting their kids are killed and claiming no weapons sent. It really highlights a specific, incredibly high-stakes reaction right in the middle of the broader chaos of these overlapping international conflicts. All right, shifting gears a bit to part 2, the U.S. political arena. Billions, ballrooms, and floorshine shoes.
Now, while the world navigates the severe military crises we just talked about, the U.S. political arena is locked in its own very different kind of battles. Like, for instance, can the president bulldoze the Statue of Liberty? I know, it's a massive pattern interrupt, but this isn't fiction, and it's not some thought experiment from a university classroom. This bizarre hypothetical was actually brought up today in a very real federal appeals court hearing.
Okay, so during a heated hearing over the Trump administration's ongoing controversial White House ballroom project, a judge basically threw out this wild hypothetical. And remarkably, a Justice Department lawyer argued that yes, courts could not stop the project and agreed that even a rapid effort to bulldoze the Statue of Liberty might actually be impossible to challenge in time. According to the reporting, these comments actually sparked audible gasps in the courtroom. It's a really fascinating look at the fierce, ongoing debates over presidential authority, judicial oversight, and the absolute limits of executive power.
Now, I want you to consider the sheer scale of this next number, $1.2 billion. While the appeals courts were busy debating hypotheticals about monuments, the House Oversight Committee was looking at this very real, very grave figure. This represents the estimated amount of questionable Medicaid spending in Ohio, which is deeply tied to alleged multi-state fraud networks.
We really have to lean into the testimony presented to Congress today because, honestly, it was explosive. Representative James Comer questioned investigative reporter Luke Rosiak, who painted some incredibly vivid, disturbing micro-narratives. Rosiak described visiting what he called ghost offices tied to Medicaid providers, basically nearly empty buildings where businesses were reportedly collecting millions in taxpayer-funded payments. The visuals reported were stark, stray cats roaming empty parking lots. And get this, the most shocking claim was 94 separate companies all registered to one single address. Lawmakers are now desperately examining these unusual patterns and multi-state links between Ohio and Minnesota, just trying to figure out if existing safeguards are completely failing to prevent massive abuse.
But to truly understand the split-screen nature of U.S. politics right now, you have to look at this comparison. On one side of Capitol Hill, you have that grave $1.2 billion Medicaid fraud oversight hearing. On the other side of the building, you have a highly anticipated foreign affairs hearing, one that was meant to discuss the severe global conflicts we covered back in part 1, but instead, it completely derailed into a bizarre argument about shoes.
Yes, literally, shoes. During testimony that was meant to address the recent Iran conflict, Representative Sarah Jacobs abruptly challenged Secretary of State Marco Rubio about a pair of Florsheim shoes reportedly gifted to him by President Donald Trump.
Rubio appeared visibly confused, responding that the shoes fit perfectly and he didn't even understand what Jacobs was referring to. He actually later slammed the hearing as a, quote, circus. It perfectly highlights the total disconnect in U.S. political theater, right? Where critical global diplomacy can just instantly be overshadowed by bizarre, partisan exchanges. Which brings us to part 3, transnational tensions and tech, the blurred lines. So here, we're going to tie the whole world back together by exploring how local issues, shifting demographics, and everyday technology cross borders to create intense international friction. We start with a stark warning from Western intelligence agencies regarding modern Chinese spy networks. These are intelligence operations actively targeting officials with security clearances, military personnel, and journalists. But what's really fascinating here is the method. They aren't just using high-tech, backdoor hacking. No. They're weaponizing professional networking platforms that we use every single day, like LinkedIn, Indeed, and Upwork. Fake job offers are being utilized as a borderless tool for espionage, completely blurring the line between everyday civilian tech and urgent national security threats.
And this borderless friction extends deeply into the cultural and political spheres as well. This outlines how a tragic local crime in England triggered an immediate transatlantic political firestorm. 18-year-old British student Henry Nowak was murdered in Southampton by a Brit-Sikh man. According to reports, a false racism claim by the attacker left Nowak handcuffed by police as he lay dying. Almost instantly, this local UK tragedy became a massive talking point in the United States. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and Elon Musk seized on the case, with Vance explicitly blaming a, quote, mass invasion of migrants and arguing Nowak would be alive if Europe had resisted it. This rhetoric has sparked profound outrage in Britain, with accusations of American political interference creating a widening ideological rift between London and Washington. It just shows how instantly a hyper-local event is co-opted into a global political narrative.
Meanwhile, on a completely different front of cultural intersection, we're seeing global demographics directly shaping the American landscape. According to recent reports, American home builders are specifically designing and marketing houses equipped with puja rooms for prayer and separate spice kitchens, specifically to cater to the growing Indian diaspora living in the United States. It's a very clear visual of how immigration transforms local economies and real estate right down to the floor plans.
But this demographic shift is simultaneously facing intense political pushback. As these economic and cultural integrations happen on the ground, political figures are pushing in the exact opposite direction. A prominent Trump aide recently stated a desire to, quote, completely end the H-1B visa program, which is widely used by Indian tech workers and immigrant founders. Again, maintaining strict neutrality here, we just see a direct, undeniable tension between everyday economic realities and the fierce political rhetoric surrounding borders and immigration policy.
Which brings us to our final point, and a question I really want you to walk away with today. Think about it. In our hyper-connected world, how does a local crime in Southampton or a single pair of Florsheim shoes in a congressional committee instantly ignite international outrage and derail global diplomacy? It truly forces us to reflect on the chaotic, incredibly intertwined nature of modern news, where the lines between the local, the national, and the global have pretty much completely vanished. Thanks for joining me on this explainer today, and keep questioning the connections in what you see out there.